In 1987, Atari released an arcade game that brought together two distinct styles into one unique package. No, I'm not talking about Jackie Chan cooking. I'm talking about APB, or All Points Bulletin. Long before the TV show Cops and its various assortment of meth heads were warming our hearts, this game mixed elements from Spy Hunter and other cops and robbers games. What was the inspiration behind this game? So put down those donuts and pick up your baton. This is the history of APB. The year is 1985, and legendary Atari coder Dave Thurer is looking for his next project. Mr. Thurer was fresh off of creating arcade classics such as Missile Command and also Tempest. He was also trying to find something unique to work on. He knew someone who was in law enforcement, and they offered to take Dave on a ride-along. After seeing the numerous things that police officers went through on a daily basis, such as writing tickets, helping people who were stranded, and even the camaraderie with other law enforcement, he got the idea for this classic game. But at least he didn't turn into Walter White. For 2.5 years, he worked on the game editor along with artist Alan Murphy. Mr. Murphy brought his unique art style to arcade classics such as Gauntlet, Galaxian, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Along with their 4 audio designers, they got to work. At the 30-month mark, they were joined by legendary Atari designer Mike Halley. With each of the team working 12 to 14 hours a day, they took all the pieces, and according to Mr. Halley, this is when it all came together. Running on the Atari System 2 board, which was host to such classic games as Championship Sprint, 720, and Paperboy. APB was released in late 1987. You take on the role of Officer Bob, who has a variety of quotas or arrests to meet in a small time frame. Each level represents a day, and there are 16 days in all. Using the same top-down perspective as Spy Hunter, you need to drive all over the city looking to enforce the law and take down the bad guys. You control the police car with the steering wheel and a gas pedal, targeting people with your crosshair and siren. The arcade cabinet was designed to look like a real police car with flashing cherries at the top whenever the siren is pressed. Some of the offenders you have to deal with are litterbugs, hitchhikers, honkers, and people who are broke down on the side of the road. To apprehend these people, you have to tap your siren at them. You have to make sure the siren is on when you apprehend criminals, otherwise you'll get a demerit. As long as you hold the siren button down, you won't get any demerits. So just like a real cop, as long as the siren is pressed, you can smash into anything you want. If you get too many demerits though, you are fired and the game is over. You also have to watch your fuel levels, but don't worry, there are various gas stations scattered all over the city that once you drive through will replenish your fuel levels. To extend your shift, there are donut shops that give you extra time. Driving through the speed shop garage on a daily basis will give you an upgrade such as better brakes, guns, armor, and radar. Starting on the 3rd day and every other day after that, you get to apprehend the elusive APB, or All Points Bulletin. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Just take a look at the mugs on these mugshots. After a brief rundown from the chief with the details of the offender, it's off to make your arrest. Some perps require you to double tap the siren button to arrest them. Others you have to ram into repeatedly. After the felon is caught, you have to return to the station to get a confession out of them. To do this, you have to press the fire and siren buttons as fast as you can before the chief enters the room. The faster you press the buttons, the more violent you shake the perpetrator. Do it fast enough and you get a confession. Mr. Halley said that originally, instead of just shaking the felon, you would administer groin punches. Mr. Halley said that while this was hilarious, once management caught wind of it, they were forced to change it. After you catch all 10 felons, the game loops endlessly. The game is full of humor from top to bottom. Mr. Halley has said that the artist Alan Murphy was a surfer and also a little bit crazy, and that most of the zany humor came straight from him. From the weird and wacky artwork to the game over sequences, Officer Bob was pulled out of his car, handcuffed, and thrown in a trash can. The sound is very well done with a catchy tune while you play and loads of sampled speech. Mr. Halley said that over its 3-year development cycle, the game kept expanding. Everybody wanted to contribute something and it just got out of control, which is why the game ended up being so difficult. Speaking of one aspect that many gamers did not know about was the sheer size and scope of the playfield. The game was littered with power-ups all over the place, including forests and other places you shouldn't be able to drive into. Officer Bob's squad car number is 54, obviously taken from Car 54 Where Are You?, the hit comedy that ran during the 1960s. Upon launch, APB was very successful, but the sales tapered off rather quickly. They had initial orders of 2,000 units, but not much in the way of reorders. Mr. Howley thought that this was due to the fact that it wasn't a straight-up driving game, nor a shooting game. While not a monster hit in the arcades, it was a big enough success to garner a few home conversions. Domark Software was given the rights for their home computer ports in 1989 thanks to their exclusive license agreement with Atari. Let's get this party started with the Spectra version. The sprites are nice and detailed, and the playability is pretty good. There's a nice rendition of the soundtrack while you play, but the thing that lets it down is the speed. While not bad, you should be able to go just a little bit faster.
That's what she said.
That's my joke. Damn it, Dwight.
The Amstrad version is up next, and right off the bat you'll notice the graphics more faithfully resemble the arcade game thanks to the use of Mode Zero. Good sound, good playability, but the only thing that hurts this is the choppy scrolling. If this would have been just a bit more smoother, it could have been a contender. The MS-DOS version looks really well done even though it's only a 16-color palette. The sprites closely resemble the arcade game and is nice and smooth. Nice, tight, responsive controls and precise AI detection. Since this is a 1989 MS-DOS game, the one thing you can count on is a less than stellar sound. Now the internal speaker tries hard, but is just not able to pull it off. The good old Commodore 64 version is up next, but in my opinion, it's not very good. A couple of magazines praised it upon its release, but I don't know if they were wearing their glasses or not. The sprites are not very detailed and have a squished look to them. The music is really good and the playability is not too bad. The Atari St Port is a good attempt at replicating the arcade presentation. While not as graphically faithful as the Amiga, the playability is spot on. The music is not very good and a lot of the voice samples are missing. The Amiga version is the best home computer port of this game. The sprites are not as large or detailed as the arcade, and the scrolling isn't as smooth, but is very close in my opinion. The playability is top notch and almost all of the speech from the arcade game is included. Who would have thought that in 1991 a handheld console would have the best home version of APB? Quicksilver Software released the Atari Lynx version in mid-1991, and it is one of the best ports of APB. For those of you who don't know, the Atari Lynx was a powerful 16-bit color handheld machine that was one of the first things I purchased when I got my first job. This port was really well done, but the problem is the screen is so small that everything is zoomed in, resulting in a smaller viewing window, making it harder to play. Also, the Atari Lynx has the ability to rotate the screen 90 degrees, so essentially it would have maintained the aspect ratio from the arcade game. But for whatever reason, they didn't do it. Approximately 95% of the arcade speech was included, along with all of the other graphical touches. A+. In 2003, for the PS2, GameCube, and the Xbox, Midway Arcade Treasure 2 was released. This is a compilation of classic arcade games, and among them was an arcade-perfect version of APB. Since this is running under emulation, what you are playing is the actual arcade game, so everything should be one-to-one. The entire presentation is nice, and it's finally nice to play an arcade-perfect version at home. And that is it when it comes to APB. With over 2,000 units sold, you should be able to find one in the wild to play. I know Galloping Ghost as well as FunSpot both have them, so if you get the chance, give it a whirl. It's one of those games that you need the steering wheel and the flashing lights to get the full effect. Thank you for watching. If you like my videos and want to support me, please visit my Patreon page. Also, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. This video was made by request from one of my Patreon subscribers. Also, be sure to watch all the way to the end to see a sneak peek of my next video.